Yes, indeed, man. I mean, had to bring you back, man. This documentary got everybody talking, people going at it. So, it was only right to bring you back and get your point of view, man. But I want to get right into it, man. 50 and Ja. How you feel about both of them going at it? You seen it?
I couldn't do nothing but see it, bro. You know what I'm saying? Because 50, tried to smash him with one of the stories that we told on Art of Dialogue before. But what people don't realize is that the story that they put out there is like that having to have some money to keep Big and Craig Mack around before he got to Clyde Davis. You know what I'm saying? They wasn't able to tell that story because they didn't have no intel on that story or what went down, or they didn't do their investigations right, which he also led up to the reason why Wolf ain't here today. You understand? They didn't tell that story. They didn't tell a story about Jessica Rosenbaum, who was at the City College situation. You understand? When it was Puff, Heavy D, and Jessica. And that was the Valley Mob. That's the only way. Wolf ended up losing his life behind Puff and his bullshit. And people they didn't even put that in the documentary. Wolf ended up losing his life behind Puff.
The Diddy documentary has become one of the most talked about projects in entertainment. It has sent shockwaves through the industry and left a number of influential figures feeling uneasy. But if there is one person who had been challenging Diddy long before 50 Cent ever started working on a documentary, it is Gene Deal. Now Gene is stepping forward with claims that could completely reshape the conversation. According to him, there was footage recorded that the public was never allowed to see, footage that he believes was intentionally left out of the final release. That raises an important question. Why? Why was Gene Deal nowhere to be found in a documentary centered on exposing Diddy? And perhaps even more importantly, what information was removed before the audience ever had the chance to hear it? This is where the story begins to take a more uncomfortable turn. When viewers started wondering why Gene Deal was absent from the Diddy documentary, many assumed the answer was straightforward. Maybe he simply chose not to participate, but Gene insists that explanation is far from accurate. According to him, the reality behind the scenes was very different. In fact, he claims he was expected to play a role in the project from the beginning, at least until circumstances suddenly changed. Gene says discussions were taking place early in the process. Phone calls were happening, ideas were being shared, and key names were being brought into the conversation. The project was presented as something ambitious, thorough, and fearless in its approach. And Gene was not expected to contribute alone. The reported plan involved bringing together several individuals, each offering insight into a different aspect of the bad boy era. Some would address the business side, others would speak on the culture, the background, and the streets. Combined, those perspectives would have created a broader picture that would be difficult to dismiss or water down. But according to Gene, the atmosphere eventually changed. What began as a professional collaboration slowly became something far more uncomfortable. He claims the dynamic shifted once discussions involving money, control, and decision-making entered the equation. The expectations that had been presented no longer seemed to match what was actually happening. Suddenly, the structure behind the documentary appeared very different from what Gene says he had originally been told. He further alleges that the name being promoted as the driving force behind the project did not possess the level of authority many people believed it did. And that, according to Gene, is when the situation truly started to unravel.
Yeah, man. I mean, I had to bring you back. This documentary got everyone talking, man. A lot of people want to know why you wasn't in it, man.
Well, first and foremost, I thought I was going to be in the documentary at first until I started talking to that director. I think her name is Stapleton. I don't know her name. I don't know, man. Me and 50 talked like 45 minutes. The producers had been calling me and everything. So this one night, 50 called me up and, they got him on the phone. Me and him was just talking. We was talking about old times, sit down with Black Hands, sit down with, with Puff Kids, the whole Puff situation, and this documentary that he's going to be doing. You know what I'm saying? So I told him that I was going to, have Kirk and Tim. Kirk will be the one who talk about the business part of it. Tim will be the one who talk about the growing up phase with Diddy and everything, like, and over there working in the record industry with him and stuff like that. They was like family. And I was gonna talk about, you know, the street stuff, what was going on with Bad Boy, you know, with the security, with Wolf, with the city college, with you know, the time that I knew about when I was with him up until about early 2004 or something like that. But basically the streets, and then the traveling with him and the atmosphere and everything. And then go back into the Notorious B.I.G stuff with the Tupac and the whole 9 yards, all the stuff that I knew, you know what I'm saying? So we was talking, and he sounded like, yo, listen here, they gonna spare no expense with this whole documentary. So I said, all right, cool. So what I did was I spoke to Tim and I spoke to Kirk Burroughs. And I was like, yo, because I had Tim's number. Tim didn't know how to get into touch with Kirk. Kirk didn't know how to get into touch with Tim. But Kirk was trying to tell me, you know, give him the number with the Tim. I said, nah, I ain't doing that. You know, so I gave one of the producers the number in the whole 9 yards to get in touch with Tim, because I want to see him get money, because I know Tim got a hell of a story with Puff. So then I talked to Tim and I told him, yo, listen here, man, we should go in as a package deal. You know, all three of us, we could tell a hell of a story about this whole documentary. You know what I'm saying? From front to start. You know, then whatever stuff that they get and everything like that. So yo, let's go in there and ask them for 50 a piece. You know what I'm saying? So Tim was like, with it, yo, Gene, whatever, you know, go ahead like that. Kirk was like, yeah, okay, cool, Gene. You know, it was like a general census that we was gonna do this in a whole package deal. You know what I'm saying? And then I started speaking to the producers and everything like that, because 50 had told me himself that they was gonna spare no cost in doing this, because he wanted to tell the story, and he wanted to tell the story like it was supposed to be told and everything like that. I said, yeah, okay. So then the director, I gotta get her name, man, because it don't even sound, I want to put her on blast, because she was telling me, you know, she was saying to me that what I was asking for was crazy, and they wasn't spending money like that. I'm talking about, you got footage, you got clothing, you got, I was doing footage, I had pictures, all the stuff that I had, you know, you could figure out a way to pay a brother and stuff like that. And then I was telling her about some prices that I've already received, and I had the invoices to show it. And then she was calling me like I was lying. I'm like, yo, who do you think you talking to? You know what I'm saying? And she was talking about, you know, there's no way nobody paid. Nobody what? I say, first of all you people come with these documentaries and stuff, the first thing you tell me, y'all tell these people out here that y'all don't pay, and y'all pay. You give, if you can make a picture look like $10,000, $15,000, you know what I'm saying? You can sit here and tell me that you're gonna pay me for my time sitting right down here with y'all. You understand? So then, you know, one thing led to another, and I was like, yeah, all right, well then, you know, F you, you know, I spoke to 50, and then she said 50, and this is exact words that came out her mouth. 50 does not determine what goes in and goes out of this documentary. And he definitely don't pay. He determine what somebody get paid. It's not his documentary like that. I was like, oh, so if it's not his documentary and I spoke to him like that, I don't need to be doing nothing with you, because I'm doing this on the strength of him. But you gonna pay me if I do it. So it went back and forth, you know what I'm saying, for a little bit, and then they had Kirk Burroughs giving me calls and everything like that. What are you calling me for?
Gene Deal then began highlighting what he believes were some of the most significant details left out of the documentary. One omission that he argues is impossible to overlook involves the death of Diddy's longtime bodyguard, Anthony Wolf Jones. According to Gene, Wolf was far more than a member of the security team. He describes him as a central figure within Diddy's inner circle, someone responsible for overseeing protection, coordinating movements, and managing situations where critical decisions could have serious consequences. Wolf was not simply standing in the background. Gene says he was closely connected to nearly every major operation surrounding Bad Boy during some of its most turbulent and unpredictable years. Yet despite his importance, Gene points out that both Wolf's name and the circumstances surrounding his death receive little attention in the documentary. Gene strongly challenges the version of events that he believes the documentary presents. He disputes several claims regarding who should be held accountable for certain incidents and questions the long-standing narrative that a single event ignited a massive East Coast versus West Coast conflict. According to Gene, that interpretation oversimplifies a much more complicated reality and conveniently shifts attention away from where he believes responsibility should actually be examined. What makes Wolf's absence from the documentary even more troubling, according to Gene, are the warnings he claims Wolf gave before tragedy struck. Gene recounts how Wolf allegedly refused to travel unless specific security measures were in place. He says Wolf sensed potential danger well before events unfolded and repeatedly expressed concerns about situations that did not feel right. Gene claims Wolf trusted his instincts and believed certain trips should never have happened in the first place. Safety, he says, was always Wolf's highest priority, even when others were focused on appearances or business obligations. Despite those concerns, Wolf remained close to the situation and ultimately paid the highest price. If someone as important as Wolf could be reduced to a footnote or omitted from the broader story altogether, Gene argues that it naturally leads to a larger and more unsettling question. How many other important details were toned down, overlooked, or removed entirely in order to preserve a particular narrative and keep certain aspects of the story from receiving closer scrutiny?
Wolf had already told, Anthony Wolf Jones had already told them, if you're not taking two tour buses of my niggas from the Valley, that's Co-op City in the Bronx, the Valley in the Bronx, if you're not taking these 2 tour buses of my niggas out there, I'm not going. Had told Puff them, had told Kirk Burroughs. You understand? I went down there and Kirk Burroughs called me up. He said, yo, Gene, you and Wolf, I got y'all tickets to LA. I said, all right, cool. So I go down there and I pick up the tickets to LA. I got Wolf ticket. So I'm calling Wolf up. I said, yo, Wolf, I got your ticket to go to LA. Wolf said, I ain't going. I said, what you mean you ain't going? He said, yo, Gene, I ain't gonna tell you how I'm making I ain't gonna tell you how to make your money, but I'm gonna let you know this. I told Puff them if they wasn't gonna take 2 tour buses of my niggas out there with us, I'm not going. Wolf is the head of all the functions that has to do with Puff dealing with security. I have my own contract with Puff, yeah. Paul Alford ran Green Gate Security, which is the daily operations of Puff stuff. That's his house, his cars, his transportation. He ran the office, the Bad Boy office, the clothing, all. He ran the daily operation with his security. Wolf is over whatever's happening with Puff. You understand? Wolf tells Puff them and tell Kirksboro them, no, if y'all not going out there right, nobody should go out there at all. Kirk calls me, I said, yo, Gene, you gonna go? I said, yeah, I'll go, bro. He said, Gene, I said, yo, dog, but we shouldn't be going out there. I tell Kirk the whole, yo, Gene, all y'all gonna be doing is going to the studio and y'all gonna go to Soul Train and go to the studio. Y'all not hanging out, y'all not doing nothing. All me and Puff did when we went there that month was hang out. And I told people all the time, and I said in the documentary before, I thought this kid had a death wish because all we did was hang out. We never saw Big at not one of the events that me and him went to, the House of Blues, movie theaters, not the California, the Celebrity Club, I guess, is a celebrity? No, begins with a C. Never seen him in none of the clubs, none of the places. You understand? Big ain't coming to none of the places. The one time Big went out is when he got. The one club that he went out to is the and that's where he got. So Wolf did not and was not going anywhere that had to do with California. And it wasn't because of the Jake situation. It was that he wanted to be safe, and the only way he felt safe if he was going out there with the dudes from his clique. And that was the Valley Mob. That's the only way. Wolf ended up losing his life behind Puff and his bullshit. And people they didn't even put that in the documentary. Wolf ended up losing his life behind Puff and his and that with BMF. That's a big segment in my book that I wrote I wrote a whole big situation in my book regarding that, Mighty. And I know you're doing this. I want to say that right there because I was there the night that Meech had promised Puff, you know what I'm saying? He ain't have to worry about Suge Knight. He ain't have to worry about nobody from this point on. And telling Puff some shit made him think that he could talk to Wolf any kind of way. Because if anybody knew, BMF was powerful back then. They had dudes from everywhere. And Meech telling him he ain't have to worry about nobody no more. It made Puff think that he could tell Wolf that he didn't need Wolf no more.
Gene Deal also argues that the documentary contained numerous inaccuracies, and one person he specifically takes issue with is Kirk Burroughs. According to Gene, Kirk was presented as a credible and trustworthy voice throughout the project. However, Gene believes that behind that image, several important facts were either misrepresented, downplayed, or left out entirely. One of the issues that immediately caught Gene's attention involved claims surrounding the funding of Biggie's funeral. The documentary suggested that the expenses were covered through Biggie's own financial resources. But Gene questions that narrative and argues that anyone who truly understood where the money came from and how it was allocated would likely have been Kirk, given his extensive involvement in business operations and financial matters during that period. Yet Gene feels the filmmakers never pushed hard enough for detailed answers on those questions. In his view, crucial areas were left unexplored, allowing important details to remain unchallenged. Gene also raises concerns about how certain individuals within Biggie's circle appeared to gain lasting authority and influence after his passing. He suggests that despite indications that Biggie intended to distance himself from some people while he was still alive, those same figures later found themselves in positions of considerable power. According to Gene, decisions involving publishing rights, marketing control, executive roles, and business interests were not simply random developments. He believes those outcomes were the result of deliberate actions that took place when Biggie was no longer here to express his wishes or protect his interests. From Gene's perspective, the documentary largely avoided examining these shifts in power and influence. Instead of asking difficult questions about how those changes occurred, he believes the film moved past them without meaningful scrutiny. For Gene, the larger problem is not limited to what Kirk said on camera. His biggest concern centers on what the documentary itself chose not to challenge. He argues that by avoiding certain subjects, the project may have protected important relationships and preserved reputations while leaving significant questions unanswered. And if Gene's concerns have any merit, then the documentary may have only touched the outer layer of a much deeper story, one filled with unresolved issues, hidden details, and uncomfortable truths that have yet to be fully explored.
Yeah, Kirk Burroughs, he also said in a documentary that, Diddy, he used big budget to pay for, Big's funeral.
Yeah, when I heard that ain't the first time I heard it though, bro. They said Big had paid for his funeral through his budget. You know what I'm saying? So if anybody would know that, Kirk Burroughs would know that. And I heard Wayne Barrows came out and said some, but to refute that. You know what I'm saying? But if Miss Wallace got a check And the check, if she got Biggie's, they had Biggie's budget, and that was taken out, money was taken out that budget for his funeral, he did use it. And if anybody knew that, Kirk Burrows would know that, because he was handling the money and the operations at that time. Wayne Barrows was one of the dudes, him and Mark Pitts, that actually was managing Big's affairs. You understand? They was his manager. Big had told me that he was gonna get rid of them because they didn't know what they was doing before he died. I had a conversation with Big. Big said, yo, I'm getting rid of them because they didn't want to F me up, because they didn't want to convince him to sell his publishing and his marketing to Puff. They was Puff boys. I guess they met in school or whatever like that. But Big was going to get rid of them. But because he died and his mother didn't know the business, she kept him around for years. If you look at anything that happened with the Notorious B.I.G and his camp, you see Wayne Barrows on there as executive producer. And he was just a manager of some of Big affairs. He was executive producers of damn near everything that went on that had to do with. If Miss Wallace was the executive producer, he was the executive producer too. Look at some of the things that was done. And now he's suing, trying to get money from Faith because of, he's saying that she has to pay the Wallace estate, and Miss Wallace is dead, Big is dead. If the estate is anything, it's CJ, Tatiana, and Faith. That's the estate. But he's saying there's some other kind of thing that he's suing them for. So Wayne Barrows is the dude that, call it any way you want to, that's been Sherwood Forest, and he got Big them in Sherwood Forest. I'm gonna put it that way. He got his estate in Sherwood Forest.
Crazy, man. But yeah, Kirk Burrows, he spoke a lot in his documentary, man. He was letting everything go. He also said that, Diddy, he did take the Rolling Stone cover from Big after Big died.
Bruh, you have to look at his sociopath, his narcissism, and see that it shows you he really didn't care about Big like he did. What Kirk didn't tell the truth about that whole thing is that even when we was in California, Kirk tried to act like that he didn't know that Puff told him that Big wasn't going to London. I know what the question you asked, but I gotta get this out, bro. Is that on Thursday, me and Puff was in a limousine. Kirk Burrows was getting Puff the itinerary of what Big and what's his respect, and told him that we was leaving Saturday, this, that, and the third, the whole 9 yards. On Thursday, Puff told Kirk Burrows, Big ain't going nowhere. He told him that Thursday, Big was not going nowhere. He said, I don't care what you do, you could go do whatever you want to do, but Big ain't going nowhere. Kirk Burrows was telling him how he had set up this whole and how Arista had paid off all this money for Big to be. Puff was adamant that Big wasn't going nowhere. Now, we were shooting the Hypnotized video. Me and Big was in the Winnebago, and Big was telling me his whole life story. What he wanted to do, his plans, all this. He even say, yo, Gene, y'all will take you with me, but you love that nigga too much. Nigga, I don't love nobody like that too much. What's up? He say, yo, what's up with the money? I said, nigga, you broke. You know what I'm saying? You owe Mike Gadget 30,000 for, I'm just going in on Big and we just talking all kind of smoking new.
With the release of *Sean's The Reckoning, the Netflix documentary executive produced by 50 Cent, the hip-hop world has once again found itself engulfed in controversy. What began as a project focused on examining the allegations and disputes surrounding Diddy has quickly evolved into something much larger, reigniting long-standing tensions and placing 50 Cent back at the center of industry drama. Although Jay-Z has remained publicly quiet throughout the conversation, many fans believe the documentary's impact has created pressure for some of the biggest figures in hip-hop. For many observers, it has reopened old conflicts and unresolved issues that never completely disappeared. Almost as soon as the documentary gained attention, speculation started spreading online about Jay-Z, Ja Rule, and other industry figures allegedly discussing ways to respond to 50 Cent. The rumors intensified after fans noticed Ja Rule interacting on social media with someone connected to 50's past, leading many to wonder whether conversations were taking place behind the scenes. Some online commentators even suggested that Roc Nation and Ja Rule might be preparing to push back against 50 Cent for once again stirring controversy within the industry. Whether those claims had any basis or not, they quickly became a major topic of discussion among fans. As expected, 50 Cent appeared completely unfazed by the speculation. He responded with his trademark humor and sarcasm, joking that his success and visibility alone are enough to make rivals come together against him. When Gene Deal was later asked about the growing discussion surrounding 50 Cent and Jay-Z, he did not avoid the topic. However, he made it clear that he believes much of what people think they know has been distorted over time. According to Gene, one of the biggest problems with the current conversation is the way older stories are being recycled online. He argues that clips, quotes, and fragments of past events are often pulled out of context, reposted repeatedly, and reshaped to support whatever narrative happens to be trending at the moment. Gene emphasizes that important context has frequently been removed from these stories, particularly when it comes to who was actually present during incidents that later turned into rumors and industry legends. In his view, many of the claims circulating today are based on incomplete versions of events rather than the full picture. He suggests that much of what is being repeated across social media overlooks critical details about how situations unfolded behind closed doors. As a result, Gene believes the public is often reacting to a simplified narrative, while many of the facts and circumstances that shaped those moments remain largely unknown.
I want to get right into it, man. 50 and Ja, how you feel about both of them going at it? You seen it?
I couldn't do nothing but see it, bro. You know what I'm saying? Because 50, tried to smash him with one of the stories that we told on Art of Dialogue before. But what people don't realize is that the story that they put out there is like that there was no girls in the room. I told the story and I said that there was girls in the room. I just want to get that out there straight before I tell you how it all went about and what really happened. There was Sarah Chapman and her girlfriend. They flew with us from Atlanta. But let me just start the story like this. Check it out. Me and Puff went to this exotic bookstore, brother. You know what I'm saying? This is the first time I ever went to an exotic bookstore, with Puff. I didn't know he even did that. But we was in Atlanta. So when we went through the door, they gave him a brown paper bag. So I guess this is a place that he was used to and people knew him there. So when they gave him a brown paper bag, Puff was just going around the store, just picking items off the shelves and stuff like that, putting them in a brown paper bag. So then, I was behind him and no Diddy, but I was about 3 feet behind him, you know what I'm saying, as he was putting stuff and putting it in his bag and stuff like that. So this one particular place that he's put up there, he had to reach up kind of high and get it. So he just started pulling things out. And he was pulling a lot of them off there. So I was like, so I looked up and the thing said butt plugs. When he walking down the thing, said butt plugs. I said, hey, yo, just to mess with him. I said, hey, yo, what are you getting these for? And he said, can I do my shopping by myself? I said, Yes, you can. And I waited up at the register for him, you know, because they had the big counter up there. So when he came to the counter, I said, yo, I'm finna see what this one going, you know, this mofo is putting in his bag. Because I know he gonna have to take everything and put it on the counter so the dude could count it, right? My man, when he came there, he gave the dude a wad of hundreds like this. You know what I'm saying? He gave him a wad of hundred and just put it up there. The dude ain't even, you know what I'm saying? He ain't even want to know what was in the bag. I was like, yo, wow. So then we was catching a G4 jet. You know, we had to go to the Astra because we was catching a G4 jet and we was going to North Carolina to do this show. So somehow he had Ja Rule to go with us, you know what I'm saying? And him and Ja was talking. And this whole time him and Ja is talking, he talking about Ja going at Jigga. You know what I'm saying? This is crazy. But he was talking about Ja getting at Jay-Z. And he was talking bad and talking crazy about Jay-Z and how Ja was talking about if it wasn't for him, that Jay wouldn't be the artist he was. He got him started. You know, he wrote certain things and stuff like that to put him out there because, you know, back in the day, nobody was even effing with Jay like that. So, but Puff was trying to, he was adamant about Ja going at Jay. You understand? So, we get to the hotel, we're in the presidential suite and all this stuff like that. So, Ja and him is, you know, chilling and everything with Jay, eating and everything, shit like that. So then they all went to the room. It was like him, Ja, Sarah, and her girlfriend. They went to the room. I don't know what they were doing in there. I didn't give a. But Puff told me, Gene, do not let nobody come in this room. Don't let nobody come in this room. So hour or so went by, whatever like that. Time went by. The doorbell rang. And it was this dude at the door saying that he was Ja's cousin. And I was like, he said, I'm here for Ja Rule. I said, who you? He said, I'm his cousin and everything like that. He said, I said, but yo, he busy right now. I'm telling the dude that he's busy. You know, the dude is talking about, yo, but I want to talk to him. I said, yo, bro, they don't want to be bothered. You know, I'm trying to, you know, tell this kid, yo, they don't want to be bothered, bro. You know what I'm saying? He said, yo, but that's my cousin. You know what I'm saying? I said, well, listen here, bro. They're in a room. They don't want to be bothered. You know, and you could see that there's only one room going back there.
What happened after that knock on the door is where, according to Gene, the story takes an even more dramatic turn. He describes the encounter as short-lived but highly charged, a moment that left a lasting impression on everyone involved. From Gene's perspective, what unfolded was not simply a disagreement, but an effort to establish boundaries that he believes Ja Rule had crossed. Gene recalls the situation as something so unexpected that it would be difficult for most people to imagine without witnessing it firsthand. In his telling, the confrontation escalated quickly, creating an atmosphere of tension that was impossible to ignore. But Gene suggests there was a deeper layer to the situation than what appeared on the surface. He hints that the incident was not an isolated episode of industry drama, but rather part of a broader pattern that he believes existed behind the scenes during that era. According to Gene, certain individuals were often placed in uncomfortable situations that seemed designed to generate friction, misunderstandings, or emotional reactions. He strongly implies that Puff may have had motives beyond what was publicly visible, subtly influencing circumstances in ways that increased tensions among people within his circle. Gene specifically suggests that some of these situations may have involved individuals connected to Jay-Z, creating dynamics that encouraged conflict rather than resolving it. Whether those involved fully understood the larger picture at the time or were simply caught in circumstances they could not control remains unclear. That uncertainty is what continues to fuel debate. Some people believe everyone involved knew exactly what was happening, while others argue that many participants were unknowingly drawn into situations that had already been carefully set in motion. Either way, Gene's account paints a picture of an environment where appearances rarely told the whole story and where personal conflicts may have been influenced by forces operating behind the scenes.
He talking about he was going through the room. I said, yo, bro, Jesus Christ had to come down here and take the breath out of my body before you go in that room. You understand? Next thing you know, I grabbed him and we start It wasn't no harassment thing like that because he couldn't handle it at the time. He could front and tell his friends because he didn't hit me up on Instagram. He could tell his friends all he want to, but that if Puff and Ja tell you the story, that nigga was upside the piano. You understand? So now, Ja and Puff run out. They butt the neck and they was grabbing towels. You understand? They was grabbing towels. And then Puff was like, yo, Gene, what's going on? Ja was like, yo, he said, that's my cousin. I was like, yo, bruh. He tried to get in the room and I wasn't letting him get in the room, bruh. And then Puff looked at Ja like this, you know, what that looked like, he said. And then Ja said, you don't want to be up in that room because there was a whole lot of freaking going on. So I started laughing, dude left, they went back in the room, and that was it. You know what I'm saying? So now the story grew as if Ja was in there and him and Diddy was doing, you know, something. And like I said that they was doing something. I don't know what the F they were doing, bruh. The only reason I know was some freaky things going up in there that Ja really didn't even understand because he said, yo, you ain't want to be up in there because there's a whole lot of freaky on. So I was like, I wouldn't have known nothing. I wouldn't even care. And I don't care today. But you know how the internet is. They cut and paste what they want to paste, and they put what they want to put to make it seem like I was saying this dude and Puff was in there, you know, alone, and they wasn't. You understand? And that was them. You know, they did their thing, you know, up in there with the honeys in there. I guess. I can only guess. So, listen, bro, I've said this 1,000 times. It was Sarah Chapman and her girlfriend. Now, Sarah Chapman, you know, if people don't know who she is, now she's one of Puff baby mamas. But prior to her being one of Puff baby mama, this is the same girl that was dating Puff best friend, Corey Jacobs, and she was dating Tupac. You understand? So now she, like I told you before, she was the one that Puff betted in the office. He said, yo, I bet you I could get her from Gary Payton. You understand? And I didn't know she dated Gary Payton, but this is what Puff is saying. And it was a $500 bet that he said he'd get it in 2 weeks. We was out in Chicago, me, him, and Sarah. We was at some kind of function that Puff had to do a in-store and like a walkthrough, you know what I'm saying, at one of his friends' parties. So, you know, she was out there with her. Next thing you know, he got her like he said he would. You know what I'm saying? That incident with him and Ja, I feel bad, you know, kind of, sort of, really, because everybody's trying to make it seem like, you know, Ja was some kind of weirdo, you know, but it is what it is, bro. I just told you what I seen. Both of them ran out the room, butt ass, grabbing towels, you know what I'm saying, with them chicks in there, you know what I'm saying? So whatever they did, that was on them. But that's the kind of games Puff play in order to get people to do what he wanted them to do. You understand? He got them, he wanted Ja to go at Jay-Z, so he got these chicks to go at Ja. You understand what I'm saying? Whether he did it or fell into it, I don't know. Because I don't know him and Jay-Z beef or why they was beefing in the first place or whatever the situation was. People who are close to either one of them may know more than I do on that. But I knew Puff was working to get Ja to go at Jay, and that was...
So what do you think? Was Gene Deal finally providing the missing context and setting the record straight? Or are there still important pieces of the story that never made their way into the Diddy documentary? The debate continues to grow and opinions remain divided. Some believe Gene's perspective sheds light on details that were overlooked, while others feel there are still unanswered questions waiting to be addressed. Whatever the truth may be, one thing is certain: this conversation is far from over, and the interest surrounding these events shows no signs of slowing down. Now we want to hear from you. Do you think Gene Deal raised valid concerns about what was included and excluded from the documentary, or do you believe the full story has already been told? Share your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video and want to stay updated on the latest developments, be sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss any future uploads. We have plenty more stories, updates, and discussions coming your way. Thanks for watching, and as always, stay informed, stay curious, and we'll see you in the next video.